So hi, my name is Brad Becker. And we're going to do an overview of things. You're too kind, really. You're too kind. Okay. See if I can do this.
Hello? Hello?
Are you tired of appliances and electronic devices not living up to their promises? Well, Fabricam has the answer for you. Introducing the Fabricam VPR 1000 video projector. It's not just a projector, it's a digital camera. It's a game controller. It's a vacuum cleaner. It's a shaver. It's even an MP3 player.
Hey you guys, what's this button for?
The VPR 1000 is everything for everybody.
Thank you, Fabricam.
Take advantage of this amazing offer now. If you buy one VPR 1000 now, we'll send you another one free. Don't hesitate. Call now. Operators are standing by. VPR 1000 comes with everything you see here. Batteries and headphones not included. Use of laser requires Department of Defense permit.
So we actually have the device right here. I'm going to be very gingerly showing this off to you, and you'll see this again. All right, so be good, or else you know what I can do. I have the power in my hands. There'll be no heckling until the QA section. So I was on the planning committee for MIX and helped organize some of the content for designers. And one of my big goals, one of the advantages of doing some of the planning is that you can ensure that you don't have to speak. And then a couple days ago, it looks like I got stuck speaking. So I'm actually very excited to be here and to talk about this stuff. I have a lot of passion for this space. And I think that we're going to see a lot of great things happen. We've been seeing a lot of exciting things on the internet and on the desktop. And I think it's only just begun. So speaking of beginning, what we're introducing, or what we're talking about at least, is the Expression family of products. We have 3 products that we're going to talk about. The first product is called Graphic Designer, and it's targeted at illustration, painting, graphic design. It's a great place to create artwork that you can use for the web, for on-screen, and for creating user interfaces and prototyping things. So that leads right into the next product, which is Interactive Designer. And this is essentially where you go to actually create user interfaces that are not agnostic, that actually understand the platform. And when a designer builds something in Interactive Designer, they know that it's actually going to look that way and it's going to work that way. And the last product is Expression Web Designer. And it's last on this list, but it's going to be the first to ship. And we're getting close on that one. It's a great product, and it's all about standards. It's all about standard-based web design. And I think it's just surprisingly good. So what I want to talk about is the world as it is today. So I've spent the last not quite 15 years as both a developer and a designer. And I know I'm not the only one in the room that's very familiar with the way that things work now between designer, developer. So the designer creates their masterpiece, their opus, the next usable thing, and this isn't it, but it's a representation that'll get the point across. So they have this sophisticated control that they've designed. They want it to look like this. They want it to work like this. How do they create that? Maybe they're using some motion graphics package. Maybe they're doing some sort of animation thing. Or maybe it's just printed out on a piece of paper. And they go walk it over to the designer, and they say, here's what I'd like you to build for me. And the designer says, sure, no problem. The designer builds something, and then using C++ or VB.NET or whatever, and then they say, hey, I did it. And the designer looks at it and says, you did what? I said, I made the thing that you asked for. And they say, that doesn't look anything like it. Where's the drop shadow? Where's the rounded corners? And the developer goes, huh? So I've actually, I worked in a consulting organization for a while, and it was really funny to be like a fly on the wall and listen to the designer and developer having this exact conversation, where they're like, look, the margins are all wrong, the layout's all wrong, you used the wrong font, everything's wrong. The developer's like, but it works. So And they have a point, right? I mean, it's important that things do more than look correct. They need to work. But there's value that each provides to the end result. And although there are psychological limitations, and there are certain things that developers just don't tend to notice, there are also technical limitations. And you can see right there, we have the great divide. We have designers who are essentially doing comps or mock-ups or prototypes using design tools, and developers who are building things purely using development tools, and there's a huge gap in between them. There's a gap of file formats, there's a gap of capabilities. And so there's a lot of these problems that we've seen for decades now, actually, with software. So what we have here, and this is the wave of the magic wand, essentially we have XAML. It's more than just XAML, but we have tools that speak the same language. We have designer tools, which are the expression products, and we have developer tools, Visual Studio, for instance, and they speak the same language. So now an interactive designer can create a user interface using one of the expression tools, and we'll show you some of this in a little bit. And then the developer cracks open Visual Studio, and they open the same project file. And they actually have the user interface there. So there's no translation that has to go on. So, and I fundamentally believe that the greatest things in the world in software happen when designers and developers work together. It's the equivalent, the modern day equivalent of the wonders of the world, right? If you think about the, whether it's the pyramids or the Lighthouse of Alexandria or, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, you had artisans and architects working together. You had the equivalent of designers and developers, stonemasons and sculptors working together to create great things. So we also, of course, the web is very important, and we're very committed to the web. And there's actually, it's a lot more sophisticated than this, but the basic idea is we have the same workflows. Designers and developers can work together. We have tools that are not agnostic. They're aware of each other, and they support these unified workflows so that people can work together better. So please ignore this slide. I just would like to use this to illustrate too many things, and all I want to point out is that it's kind of pretty, but really, if you look at the right-hand column, and this doesn't really delineate the relationship between these different mediums, but we have the web, which is really the browser. So we have the browser, we have Windows Vista, and then we have, like Bill Gates was talking about, WPFE. We have a way to go to mobile and devices as well. And WPFE also targets, it can run on Vista or it can run in the browser as well. So that's why this is a little bit misleading. But the idea is that you can create WPF or HTML, AJAX-based web apps in a browser. You can create desktop apps that are totally connected to .NET and to your file system and to the WCF, all the WinFX stack there, and you can have amazing powers of integrating with data and with connectivity and all that stuff. So one of the funny questions that we get sometimes when we show the presentation layer stuff is they say, well, how do you, how do you connect to SQL Server? So, well, it's .NET. You say connect to SQL Server. I mean, it's like there's not all these layers of translation that you have to do. So we're going to talk about XAML next, and I'd like to have Mr. Robert come up here. Robert Ingebretson is a program manager at Microsoft for Windows Presentation Foundation, and he's going to do some a little show and tell here on, let's see if I've got you up here.
It's me.
On XAML and on how to hand code. Because it's a lot like HTML in that you can basically just get in there and start coding tags, and you've got layout tags, and you've got shape tags, and content tags. So take it away.
So how many of you are familiar with hand coding HTML? I'm guessing like everybody, right? Like typically when you, like my mom wanted to create a web page for a class that she was taking. She was getting her master's degree. And so the first thing we did is we sat down and we didn't use a visual tool. We used Notepad, right? And I began by showing her some of the simple things that you can do just by understanding the language. And so before we start talking about the tool today, I wanted to give you guys a quick overview of what's going on behind the scenes. So this is a tool called, oh, that is not what you want to have happen.
You've been set up.
There we go. You know, I've heard it. You guys can call me Robbie, too, if you want. That's funny. I've heard of that happening. I didn't know that actually happened.
You've now been initiated.
Yeah. Anyway, where were we? So I wanted to show you just a little bit about what's going on under the covers. So XAML is a markup language really similar to HTML. People sometimes say that XAML is, by the way, it's XAML. The Z, it's like Xavier, right? XAML. A lot of people say XAML is like HTML on steroids. I prefer to think of it as like HTML if HTML worked out every day for like 4 years and then showed up at the high school reunion and everybody was like, wow, what happened to you, HTML? And I think the reason I make this distinction is because we've been working really hard on this. And I just want you to know it wasn't steroids. We worked real hard on this. Let me just quickly show you. So the first thing I'm going to show you is some drawing primitives. Oh, and I can look at this screen. So first thing I'm going to
show us is spelling, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the first thing I'm going to show, this is my favorite color, by the way, which we support. It's Papaya Whip. And I'm just going to get an ellipse on the screen. Oops. Problem with the new keyboard. Okay, so you can see that we support really simple drawing primitives. So we have ellipses, rectangles, and you can also see that I've put this in a canvas. So canvas is a layout container.
So what are we looking at here? What is this? Is this a tool?
Oh, that's what I was saying, sorry. So this is a tool called Split View. And Split View is really similar to a tool that ships with the SDK called XAMLPad. It basically gives you, on top it shows you what we're rendering, and down here it shows you what we're typing. And the advantage of this tool, the reason I'm showing you this, is it gives you that experience of typing something and seeing what happens immediately. So you can see that I've put this ellipse inside of a canvas. So canvas, like I said, is a layout container. And one of the neat things that you can do is we have this idea of attached properties. So this lets me set a property that actually belongs to the canvas on the ellipse. So I can say, move this down 100 and over 100. And you can see that I can move it around. So you can do a lot of stuff like that. There's other layout containers. We support a number of them. We also support a number of controls. And one of the cool things that we've done is we've created a language where you have a rich content model. So for instance, button, if I created a button, could actually have this ellipse as its content. So if I do that, then I have a button, and now the ellipse is the content. And in fact, we could put then that button inside of another button, or else I'll put it in a list box. So you can see that now I've got a button in a list box, and if I can get in there, I can click on the edge here. We'll add some more ellipses to that. So you can see, so now I've got a list box that's filled with these ellipses. The other thing that's interesting that you can do, though, is we have this notion of templates. And so a template allows you to, rather than making that ellipse be the content for the button, to actually make it be the visual representation of that button. So if I set the template property on the button.
All right, translate that for us.
I will translate.
Just going to show it to us?
I'll show it to you, yeah.
Even better.
So I'm creating a template for the button. So you'll notice that as soon as I complete the syntax here, that the button Chrome goes away, and this ellipse now actually is that button. So when I click on that ellipse, I'm getting the click event actually on the button instead of just on the ellipse. So if all you're trying to do is make a button that looks like an ellipse, that might be not as interesting because you could just use an ellipse. But the thing that this lets you do is it lets you create really sophisticated visual representations for your controls. So here, this is a set of buttons that I did. I created these over the summer, actually.
It took a whole summer?
Sorry. Created these while I was on vacation over the summer.
It works quick.
Yeah.
4 buttons.
Yeah, 4 buttons over the summer. That is the kind of productivity that you're looking at. No, I created these. Actually, honestly, I created these on an airplane trip on my way home from my wife's parents' house. And the cool thing about these is that I've created them using all these vector or these drawing primitives. And so it means that if I were to scale these, so I'll add a layout transform. If I scale these, we continue to maintain that same fidelity. And this has a number of advantages. First of all, it means that you can make big buttons, which there is a need for sometimes. The other advantage, though, is that if you're using newer display technologies where you have a really high resolution, you're able to take advantage of the full resolution of that display. And so we found that applications actually really come alive on high resolution displays. So I'm going to end my, my quick overview of XAML with that, except I want to show you one more thing. And this is an application that is kind of fun. This is I guess, a really simple mashup, if you will. This is a combination of my blog and a guy named Carlos Luiz's photos on Flickr, because my photos are mostly of my kid, which is not really as
Does
nice
Carlos
as
know
it
you've
is.
done this?
No, Carlos doesn't, but they're on Flickr. So, the reason I want to show you this is tomorrow I'm doing a session called an overview of WPF for designers, and we're going to walk through building this application from scratch. And I'd love it if you could join me tomorrow. There's some exciting stuff going on here. I'll show you how to use effects, how to do some animation, how to get this rich reading experience where I've actually got a custom embedded font, which incidentally is my own handwriting. So please come tomorrow. It's in the keynote room right after the keynote, and I'd love to see you there. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, you just saw the power of XAML and how easy it is to hand code and tag things. But there are some limitations, right? Not everybody is comfortable doing that. For certain things, it's not always the fastest or most efficient way. And then also, although it is human readable, if you look at the code that we have here for that radial gradient and the kind of apparent sphere here, it's a lot of code. It's certainly not the way that a graphic designer would want to work in designing visual elements. So that brings us to our first tool, which is Expression Graphic Designer. And I'm going to have Arturo Toledo come up here in just a minute and do some demonstrations of it. What you need to know is that it's a hybrid tool, so it's both vector and raster based. And it's got some cool features. It's got some kind of painterly features in there, as well as illustration and kind of photographic oriented features. So Arturo is going to show that to us right now. Arturo?
Thanks, Brad.
And Arturo is a product manager at Microsoft as well.
Let me change the source here. This is
Yes.
C, I think.
Here. This one. And
Maybe there.
we need like the Benny Hill music.
Was that it?
This stuff.
I think there it is.
Okay, we'll give this a second. Check video cable.
It's actually right here. Let me send it there. Let's actually see if the whole thing is visible. Yep.
Take it away.
Thank you, Brad. My name is Arturo Toledo. I'm Technical Product Manager for Expression. And we're going to take a look at Expression in Graphic Designer, which is the first tool we're going to see today. Now, Expression Graphic Designer is a tool that will help designers create graphics. The cool thing is they will be able to create both vector-based or bitmap-based graphics, as we're going to see. Now, independently of the good set of professional features that we have in Graphic Designer, we also included some extra nice features that will help designers be more productive and creative. So let me go ahead and show you one of these features. And I just need to have the mouse working, actually. There you go. So let me go here to Graphic Designer. So here you can see I have 3 different images. And I'm going to use a feature called Photo Montage, which will help me to quickly stitch all those images together into a single one. Now I just need to drill down into this image by double-clicking over it. I'm going to zoom a little bit, and I'm going to crop this image so I obtain a flat, nice rectangle image with a kind of a panoramic view, just the way I want it. And once I have that, I'm going to copy this image into another file that I have here. Now, as part of Expression Graphic Designer, you can create both vector-based or bitmap-based layers. So in this case, for me to paste that bitmap, I'm going to create a bitmap-based layer. I'm going to hit OK. So here you can see that we now have some vector and bitmap layers right in the same environment. I'm going to press Ctrl-V to paste the image and drag the layer a couple steps down here, so it's actually positioned beneath these vector objects I had previously created. So hybrid environment working right now. Now, besides having bitmaps as part of bitmap layers, we can also have bitmaps as objects inside of a vector layer. And that will allow us to treat these bitmaps as any other vector. So I'm going to create a new vector layer, and I will quickly insert a couple extra images that I have right here. And actually, I opened them. So what I need to do is insert them. It's going to be these two images. And I'm going to drag this one over here, and this other one, I think I'm just going to make it a little smaller, place him in the center, just like that. And I'm going to drag that layer almost all the way down, also beneath these vector objects that I have here. And now what I want to do is I want to add some live effects. Live effects are filters that you can apply to vector objects, but since these bitmaps are inside of a vector layer, then you can apply those same filters to bitmaps as well. So I'm going to go to my live effects palette, and you can see that we have a bunch of different effects that we can apply. And right now I'm going to apply the typical Gaussian blur, so you can see a live preview on how that image is going to work or look like after I apply the effect. So there you go. That's kind of the effect I was looking for. Now, if I double-click over this image, we actually gain access to the original pixels. So those filters that we applied did not destroy or modify the original pixels. Now, what I want to do is I want to change the color of the shirt for this guy. Expression Graphic Designer includes standard selection tools like Magic Wand, Lasso, Polyline Lasso, things like that. But it also includes something called Smart Select, which we're going to use right now. So let me zoom in so you can see this a little better. I'm going to quickly do a freehand lasso selection. I don't have to be very accurate on that. And then I'm going to use the Smart Select tool, and I will quickly isolate the areas that were not already selected. And I will do so by doing a simple freehand stroke like this one. And automatically, Graphic Designer takes care of incorporating those areas as part of a selection.
Looks like you're drawing a beard on him.
Yep. So let me go in here again. And then, of course, I'm going to apply one of the image editing capabilities that we have here, like hue. So in case if I wanted to make this blue, I actually made some pixels of his neck blue. And if we go back to the document, we're going to see that the Gaussian blur is still there. But now we have those blue pixels that we created. Now, finally, I'm going to reveal an existing layer that I had previously created. It's a text object. And we're going to apply an outer glow effect to this text object. And as we're going to see, we're able to apply live effects to both bitmap objects, in the case of this guy over here, and to vector objects like this one. Now, let me go ahead and close these couple documents and show you this one, which was very sweet. So this is a nice cartoon, and we have some background here, which is kind of has some kind of bubble style back there. Let me show you how that was done. I'm going to isolate one of these strokes, and I'm going to choose the freehand brush and draw some extra brushes.
Cool. Some
extra strokes there. Now, that's pretty cool, but what if I wanted to actually create a bunch of different strokes that all look a little bit different? We have something called variations. It's a new feature here. And basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to set a random variability between different properties of an object. So I can play with the variability for hue, for saturation, lightness, transparency. So the next time I start creating or drawing strokes, all of them will look a little better. So we have all these kind of tools that provide graphic designers with a very natural flow, very natural, realistic kind of sense when creating graphics. Now I'm going to show you this. You could expect.
That's an apple.
Yep. A Washington apple.
Oh, okay.
So right here, you could think of this image like if this was a bitmap. But in reality, it's just a bunch of vectors. So let me zoom in and quickly select a bunch of them. So we have all the editable paths that we could edit there. And of course, since they are vectors, I can easily apply different brushes to them.
That's beautiful. Arturo actually drew this apple, too.
So now I'm going to isolate one of those strokes because I want to show you how this is actually done. So I'm going to take this stroke over here, and I'm going to make a copy out of it. And then I'm going to change this for a color that we can actually see on the screen, like this one. So when I select this stroke, we can see two parts. We can see the vector path, which is the orange line that you see there. It's a vector editable path. And then we have a skin or a brush. In this case, it's a bitmap-based brush. This brush was made out of a photograph. And of course, this remains editable, so I can always go and edit my vertices, just like you would expect on any professional tool that helps you create vector graphics. Now, notice that also you can create vector-based brushes like this one. So Graphic Designer provides designers with the capability of creating vector-based brushes or bitmap-based brushes. And when you combine these two, it's when you can get these kind of realistic appearances like the one in the apple. Now, finally, let me show you this user interface. And this is where it starts really getting interesting for graphic designers in a business perspective. Because now we are able, as graphic designers, to participate in the process of creating software applications for Windows or the web. So in this case, being a graphic designer, I really only took care of designing and defining the look and feel of my user interface. As you can see here, I created all these icons and little widgets, and I defined the appearance of my buttons. I defined that we might want to have these kind of panels that dock between each other. I designed some more icons down here. Even I mocked up a little bit of how the data will be presented when this application actually gets connected to a backend server, SQL server, something like that. So now that I'm done with this, I'm going to go and use the SAML export feature. And let me just overwrite this file. And this will take us to the SAML export dialog box. And here we have detailed control on how we want our SAML code to be generated. Basically, right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export all these elements as part of a resource dictionary, which is like a library of objects where I can store a bunch of the different things I've been working on. In this case, all these gadgets, these different icons that I have all over here. Now, if I hit the Code tab, I can see the code, the SAML code representation of all those graphics. And again, this code was generated for free by me, by the graphic designer for me, so I didn't really have to code anything. I just had fun, like graphic designers, using graphic designer-oriented tools, and the code got generated for me. I'm just going to hit OK to get the SAML file ready, and I think now we're ready to go to Robert Reinhardt.
Yep, so Robert Reinhardt's going to come up here. Thanks, Arturo.
Sure.
So Expression Interactive Designer. So somebody's created the artistic elements of your application. Perhaps they've mocked up a user interface in a design fashion, and now somebody's going to actually put this together and work on the layout and see how this works at different resolutions and maybe wire it up to data and all that. So we have Robert here. So Robert is a world-renowned author. He's the VP at the Multimedia Platforms Group at Schematic, and he's just an all-around good guy. And so take it away. Oh, actually, let me put this back here for you.
Yeah, put it back. Well, thank you for that introduction, Brad.
I didn't mean a word of it. Oh. I'm just kidding.
And I wanted to extend my thanks to Brad and his and the Expression Group for inviting me and Schematic to be part of this presentation. I actually want to give a shout out to my fellow coworkers, Peng Li and Kate Wajobi. They're going to be presenting digital home sessions tomorrow, where we're going to show a lot of our MCE work that we've done with Microsoft. And that actually, before I start with the demo, if it's okay, I just want to talk briefly why my group at Schematic is interested in a tool like this. Schematic does do a lot of web development, web design, traditional kind of stuff that you see on the web today. But like I just mentioned with other coworkers of mine, we are doing a lot of Media Center work too. We're a lot of the online spotlights that you see in Media Center today, MTV Overdrive, the Comedy Central's Motherload. We worked with the Viacom companies to port their online versions to Media Center. And so for me and for my group at the Multimedia Platforms group at Schematic, any kind of emerging technology that's going to let us work on the Windows platform more fluidly is something that's going to interest us. And that's where Interactive Designer comes into the picture. So I can envision scenarios down the road once Vista launches and is a platform that people have, whether it's with Windows Media Center or not, that we can start to deploy applications through Media Center that run on the desktop. So right now there's still a lot of great investigation and exploration that we can do with something like Windows Media Center and desktop applications that we create in a tool like Interactive Designer. So those possibilities are really exciting for us. What I'm going to do right now is go through just this file that Arturo created for us already and just show you some of the features of Interactive Designer. Before I do that, oh, there's the mouse and keyboard, right? I'm not looking at that one. I'm looking at this one.
This one will explode if you touch it.
That's right. I don't want to touch that thing. Before I start showing features of Interactive Designer, I do just want to show off the projects palette. The projects palette has all the files for this project together, or for this application that I'm going to be building. And these files are exactly the same files. Let me see if, oh, there it is. It's open in Visual Studio already. Thank you, Arturo, for setting that up. I'm used to running it myself. This is Visual Studio loading that very same project. So I see the exact same files, so there's really no export process coming out of Interactive Designer. The files that I create in Interactive Designer are exactly the same files that a developer who's using Visual Studio is going to use. So I can see that, let me just open it here real quick. This is in Visual Studio. I'm just going to open the same project here, and I'm just going to go ahead and test it, hitting the F5 key. That's my preferred way to get that launched. And now it's compiling that application, and after it goes through its motions, it's going to pop open that application, and I can see it run, hopefully. There it goes. It's coming. There it goes. So I can see that here's the application. It's working. I've got various buttons here that I can click and press. I haven't linked any of these controls yet. I'm going to be showing that, but this application is working. If I resize this right now, you can see that things are behaving as an application would. So I'm going to go ahead and close that and just go back to Interactive Designer. There it is, sorry. No, I don't need to reload it. And I can and again, I can just test that very same project here using the same shortcut key as well. F5, I can test it, and again, it's going to just take a couple seconds, and I see that very same application. It's compiling the XAML the same way that Visual Studio would. So I want to point out a few things very quickly about Interactive Designer. It is actually built on top of Windows Presentation Foundation. So with the power of WPF, we can do this kind of neat workspace zoom. So depending on the resolution of the monitor that I'm using, especially for demos like this with a projector, where I have a lower resolution that I might be working on my workstation, I can zoom around this workspace so it's more legible for me to read it, and just the panels are at the right size.
It's magic.
It's magic. It's the workspace zoom. Let me just go into showing you now some quick things that I can do to enhance what Arturo's already created here with this template. So I'm going to go ahead and, I shouldn't call this a template, with the project already with the XAML, because there are specific templates that I'll show in a second. The first thing I'm going to do is take that empty button that's up on the workspace already in this design tab. Let me show that real quick too. At any point, I can switch between the XAML code and the design view to just sort of see the representation of my project in XAML versus design mode. It's not a full-featured editor like it would be in Visual Studio, but I do have access to the code, and I can make modifications there if I wish. I'm going to show you more of the WYSIWYG interface elements in this walkthrough. So let's go ahead and just drill down to one of the buttons. Let me zoom up on the stage here to that button a little bit, and use my hand tool here. Go over to that button. So I'm going to drill down. So this is a nested control that's deep down within the project. So I can just keep double-clicking. About 6 times will do it.
So there's nested layout containers to handle the dynamic layout.
So I'm going to keep going down until I get to the button. I know I'm on the button because well, first I see the yellow outline, but also there's a highlight in the timeline palette here. If I drill down with this, I can see it's highlighting the outer container until I get to the actual button. So I can see there that it's highlighted for me in this grid. Actually, let me expand the grid. The wrap panel there, I'm actually down to that yellow outline. So I have the button that I want to start working with. Into this button, I'm going to bring one of the PNG files that's already been prepared to bring in. Some have already been placed in this layout. So I go over to the projects palette here. I'm going to right-click and insert this into my button right now. And as soon as it's inserted, it's going to size it to fit the container. But I can do additional transforms with this if I want. I can click on the corner and scale it down a bit. I could rotate it if I wanted to and skew it. Let me just show you that real quick. Oh, let me get back down to my graphic there. So I can, the typical kind of transforms that you would expect I can do. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. So I could skew it, I could rotate it, I can shrink it down just a bit like I did here. So now I've got that PNG file placed into the button. I'm going to show you now how I can actually create some states for all of the buttons that are in this application. So I've got this button ready to go, but now I want to make some modifications that are going to affect all the buttons in this application. I need to add some rollover states. I need a click state for each button too. So I'm going to break out into that example next. Did I miss anything before? No? It's all good? Okay, cool. Just thought I'd check. So let me go ahead and start editing that button template. I can also set a selection by right-clicking anywhere in the workspace, and I can set the current selection to something that's within that the z-axis there that I clicked on. So right now I have widget selected, but I want the button to be selected, not the widget. So now it highlighted that outer container, so no fuss, no muss. And I'm going to go into the button view. Let me just, once I know, I just lost my selection. Let me go back to the button. And I'm going to edit the template. Oh, I lost it again.
You clicked off of it.
I keep clicking off
Old
of it.
habits die hard.
It's true. Let me just go ahead and set it again. And actually, I like using this sometimes up here too. I can use the Format tab, or I can use a right click. I'm going to edit the template that this button is using. I could edit a copy of it if I just want it to affect this particular button on the stage, but I want to edit the master template that's being used by all the buttons in this project. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that template. And I'm going now inside of that. This is an actual WPF control here, right, that I'm editing. And so I'm going to choose, let me just zoom that up just a little bit for you down here.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. So I use my workspace zoom, just so you can read that a little bit better. Let me get this fashion just a little bit better. So you can see here, part of this control has a grid container. It's got this content presenter layer as well as this rectangle. The rectangle is what I want to work with on the template. This rectangle is just the artwork of the rectangle. So it's the rectangle in this template that I want to change so that I have a 2-point. My goal here is to add a 2-point stroke that's yellow to all of my buttons so that when I mouse over, I get that. So I can see that I have different timelines represented already. Right now, I don't have any specific timeline for my button selected. So I'm going to choose the is mouse over timeline. Right now, I don't have any keyframes added to this timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and change now my stroke to yellow. So I'm just going to use the nice appearance palette to do that. Just going to watch my values there so I'm consistent later. There we go. So I got a nice yellow. I'm going to change the width now to 2. And I can see I get an instant display, of course, in the workspace of what's happening. So that's my over state. I just want a nice little simple rectangle. And now I'm going to go to the is press state so that when someone clicks on any of the buttons in this project, we have a special view for that. So I'm going to go click over to the is press state. And here I'm going to replicate some of those same steps that I did. I could try and copy and paste some stuff, but it's a pre-alpha software, so I don't want to push it too much. So let me go ahead and set this to about the same value that I was using before. Again, set the stroke to 2. But now I also want to do something different. I want to change the fill so that when the user clicks this button, the fill will change. And I'm going to use a radial gradient for that fill. So I'm going to go ahead and click the fill property in the appearance palette. And I'm going to go ahead and click the radial gradient brush. And I can see a gradient's been applied to the fill of this rectangle. I'm going to just make it a white to white transparent gradient. So let me take the alpha down on that last point. There we go. I can, again, just instant results right there. And let's go ahead and test this button right now. Not only this button, but since I edited the template, all the buttons in this project are going to have that new behavior. So I'm going to go ahead and test the project. Give it a second to do its magic. Oh, did I move the stage again?
Yeah.
I've done
all
that before.
Extra clicking
That's
you were
right,
doing.
all my extra clicking. So let me move out here real quick and just click on this and move this back in. It's clicking a lot, sorry about that. And go ahead and test it.
The top.
Okay. Oh, I cropped the top, but it's
That's
okay.
all right.
For now, you get the picture that I now have rollover states on my buttons. If I click on the button, any of the buttons, I can
Cool.
see that gradient working behind it.
Okay, so
Pretty neat. So I didn't have to edit every button.
yeah, so we're at an interesting juncture here. We've just scratched the surface. We have a lot more to show you, but technically we're out of time for the presentation. Would you all like to see more of this?
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Well, we could. Well,
Go for it.
I'll let you MC.
Go for it.
I'm not gonna try and take over there. You determine the time stuff. So just a couple more things that I do want to show. I won't need a ton of time, but let's just tackle another problem. I want to link this slider that's already in the presentation to the text size that I see in this text box here, or the font size of the text that's in this existing text box. So let's just see how easy it is to link the property of the slider to the font size. So I'm going to drill down to the text box. Again, I can double click on it, or I could just quickly right click, set the current selection to the text box. I can go to my properties palette over here, which is collapsed, and I have all the properties of this object on it showing up in the properties palette. I'm going to right click on font size. Going to choose data bind. So again, this is very, very, very simple. I'm taking my time to explain it to you, but this would only take a few seconds to do if I wasn't showing you it in a demo. So I'm going to choose an element property. I want one element property to be linked to this font size that I just selected. So I need to drill down here into my workspace that I've set up already. I know it's the left grid, the bottom grid. Bottom left has the slider that I want to work with. Over in the properties for that slider, I'm going to just choose its value. The value property is going to contain what position my slider's at. So now that value is going to be applied directly to my text box. I'm going to just go ahead and click Finish. And you can see already it's changed the text size to match the slider.
It's so readable.
It's very well, especially at this zoom level. So let me just show you real quick when I test it that slider is going to work in real time as I drag the slider. So I didn't really have to do any fancy coding to do that. I can just go ahead and drag it, and it's linked. So that wasn't working. I showed you from Visual Studio. It wasn't working before.
Right.
It was just doing nothing.
So we have a new joke. How many developers does it take to bind two controls together?
One?
None.
None. Oh, none.
Just Robert.
None. That's right. I
won't tell any more jokes.
I actually skipped over the 3D, and I think that's one of the most interesting things about interactive designer. So let me go over to the 3D object. We do have this 3D object here. Let me just go ahead and set the selection. It was made, I believe, in XAML 3D, right?
XAML 3D.
Oh, XAML 3D, sorry.
The Electric Rain.
That's right, Electric Rain's product. And I'm just going to go ahead and drill. It's actually easier if I double-click on this one.
It's a tool that lets you do 3D modeling. And
that's right.
You can also import. We have exporters and importers from like MIX06 and from Maya and stuff like that too. So.
And let me just go back to this 3D object. So I know I'm down to the 3D object because I can see the adorners on the object. I can start changing things. I can stretch it here. I'm just going to undo every step that I do. There's a camera orbit tool that I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to show everything. But I could change the camera view. And I'm going to link right now. What I'm going to show you as a demo is that I'm going to change the view of this object, this 3D object in the application, and tie it to a button press. So I didn't show it to you on purpose, but these first three buttons are already set up to change the view of this object to that orientation that you see in the button. This fourth button isn't linked yet, though. I haven't even created that animation yet. So now what I'm going to do, let me just drill down again in my timeline palette to get to that object. So there it is, the viewpoint 3D, and there's that VPR 1000 group. And I'm going to just demonstrate how quickly I can make a timeline that is specific to that I'm going to trigger with that button. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new timeline just by clicking the Create New Timeline button. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And one of the neat things about Interactive Designer is that it's time-based. It's not frame-based. So the markers that I see in this timeline view here, these are seconds. These aren't frames. So I'm thinking now, wearing my animator hat, I'm not a great animator, so I'm not going to make any bones about it. But if I were the animator on this project, I could just go by, yeah, I want this animation to take 1 second. And interestingly enough, I don't even need to specify a starting keyframe. I'm going to demonstrate also what's known as a handoff timeline, so that wherever that 3D object last was, we will animate now to this new position in 1 second. It's a really neat feature. So I'm at 1 second, so I need to go to my rotation palette right now, or sorry, the rotation tab in the transform palette. I'm just going to type in some values here that I know are going to give me that view that I want. So 40 on the X, minus 40 on the Y, and 20 on the Z-axis, or for those Canadians in the audience,
of course, you could,
Z.
You could use direct manipulation on the object as well by clicking on the axes and dragging and all
But
that.
I'm not a 3D guy, so I'm not even going to try to do that.
You opted for precision.
That's right. I went for just the values, because I know that that's what that previous object was set
It's all
to.
right. It takes all kinds.
So
right?
now I've got that view rendered, and I want to trigger this timeline, this new timeline that I added, timeline 4, to that button. So I'm going to go over to that button right now. Let me just zoom up a little bit here in my workspace so you can see that I'm indeed selecting that button. And I'm going to just right-click over it and set the current selection to that button. So button 4 is now highlighted. I'm going to go to the Timeline Properties palette, and I can see that it's already got my Timeline 4 active in the name. And I'm going to add a trigger for this timeline. And the trigger is going to be a click event from that button I just selected. So I'm going to click the Add Trigger button. Notice that because my selection was already on the button, it already filled in button 04. If I click on that, you can see it says button 04. It's a little cropped with my zoom right now. And the event that I want to associate is the click event, so I'm going to choose that.
Scroll down real quick with those events, because there's a lot of events there.
Yeah, there are.
So again, all this is built on top of WPF, which harnesses all the power of .NET Framework. So you have like a really full whole development system behind you that your developers will be very excited about, and that the designers can tap into.
And
with their
tablet
designs.
events. I have a tablet PC.
That's
There's
right.
stylus events that you can
all the
use
stylus
as well.
events and ink stuff.
That's all excellent. I'm going to go ahead and choose that click event. And now that I've got the event added, I'm pretty much done. Unless did I forget? I don't think I forgot anything. I think it's as simple as that. Sometimes I forget that. I always have an inherent distrust of any technology I trust, that just before I start to do something.
When it's time for a demo.
That's right, especially when it's a demo.
That's
so
wisdom.
Just to show
That's
you
called wisdom.
that these 3 buttons were already triggered, but let's test my 4th button. There
Excellent.
it goes. So it's going now to that fourth view. And now, what I really want to show you the handoff timeline real quick. Notice that I can click anywhere between, and it doesn't give me any kind of jumping of a keyframe. It's not resetting that view. So it can take it from wherever it was previously.
Right.
So I can just click around on this like wild and not worry about where the last state was. It's just going to know it needs to take it to that final position.
Normally, if you had if you have 4 states you want to be able to go between in any particular order, you have to make a whole matrix of 16 different transitions to go from this one to this one or that one to that one, and this just takes care of it.
So the very last demo I'm going to show, and I know I'm being a little rushed with this, so my apologies. Let me just scroll down here. I'm going to just show you how easy it is to take an external data source like an XML file and bind it to a control, like a list box. So let me go ahead and just zoom in here a little. Zoom in a little bit. There we go. So we've already got a grid element set up here, container. So I'm just going to go ahead and double click down to it. Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
That's, let me go back before I start doing any edits.
Hey, we're doing some advanced tips here today, too.
Let me just click down on, I'm trying to get over to the none. Oh, let me just grab this over. There we go. So I want to make sure, that's a very good point. I almost forgot that. I do have it on my notes over there, but the none tab just makes sure that any changes I'm doing now aren't linked to a very specific timeline animation.
The default,
and that would be bad. So I'm glad you reminded me.
Otherwise, the changes that you made or whatever you did would only happen when that timeline was triggered.
That's right. And I want this to be something global for the whole project. So now that I have no timeline specific selected, it's on not any of the ones that I was working on before. I drill down now to the container, the grid that I want to add this list to. But let's go to the data palette. I'll just show that real quick. Let me shrink some of these down. So I'm going to add an XML data source. I can just browse to a local source that's already here. That's a data.xml file. set up. It's going to interpret that schema automatically for me and give me a representation.
So this is the price list that the graphic designer had created.
So this
now you're going to implement it.
That's right. If I had more time, I'd open the XML file for you and show it to you. But trust me, it's got all the data associated with this list box that I want, like price, description, an image, and I can quickly bind this information to my control.
Using C#, you're going to go to the code editor?
Oh, no way. What are you
oh, okay.
Not me. No, I'm gonna just drag this.
He was scared.
I was like, I actually thought he was serious. That was not playing. I'm gonna go, I don't know C#, so I'm not gonna be able to go. So I'm just gonna go ahead and drag that array there that's represented in my XML straight to this grid container, and it's automatically gonna ask me if I want to bind it to something existing or to make a new control. I'm gonna select that list box element, and now it's going to go ahead and click OK to add it. Now it's going to give me a preview of that data. It's actually reading the data from that XML file and showing it to me there.
Right.
I don't want the description in this particular representation of the data, and I don't want my image to show up as a path. I want it to actually evaluate that to an image data type, so it's going to show me the image. So now I've got a very accurate, somewhat accurate preview. That's still not quite what I want, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I can see it's added the control there. I'm just going to position this now and make it fit within my grid a little bit better.
Cool. And you'll notice that as he's stretching that, it's not stretching the cells that are inside,
That's right.
the items that are inside. It's intelligent. It knows that it's a control, that's a container.
And now I see that the data is represented, and I could demonstrate. It's a longer process, so I'm going to simplify because Arturo helped me out here by making a catalog template that I could apply to this list box, which is already going to just apply some settings to shrink down the image and make the layout a little bit more pleasing. So I'm just going to apply that resource. There it is, catalog template. And now I can see that that is rendering in a better way for this information.
And it's important that what he would normally do is you would right-click and say Edit Item Template, like we showed you earlier, and like Robert showed you in XAML. You can do the same thing in the tool here, and then you can actually, in place, edit, rearrange, change what containers are in there, change the fonts and properties, draw things in there, whatever.
And I'm just going to do a few more finishing touches to this. Although the data is being represented the way I want to drop out the background, so I'm going to choose background, choose none. To turn off the border brush, I already have my grid outlined, so I don't need the border brush. And I just lost that text for the price, so I'm going to change the foreground to white. Now I can see the price. Now I'm just going to test this real quick, so you can see that I've got live data in this that's going to show up, and I can scroll through it just like I would expect to.
You didn't even save first.
I didn't even save it. That was a little scary because it is
You're in Vegas. You're rolling the dice.
Right. So I can see, there it is. I can scroll through all the items. They're ready for me to go. And I just want to show real quick too, grid splitters. You can organize your layout with grid splitters so that containers respond to the way that you split. You want your layout to respond to sizes either of the application or even internally the dividers. So that's really it, and we've already gone over, so thank you for bearing with me as we went through it.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Excellent. So I think that part of what's important to note from that is that there's quite a bit of stuff that an interactive designer can do before they have to even get to the developers, so that you can see people doing interactive prototypes. They can do usability testing early before you have to commit all the resources of your development team to work on things. So next steps. We're going to have a Q&A in here for whatever time we have remaining, which is 15 minutes, I think. And then we're going to have Expression Web Designer in here. We're going to spend an hour going in detail over the product. It's very exciting. I highly recommend sticking around for that. And then after the conference, go to Microsoft.com/expression. We've got training videos that walk you through the product. I mean, we've just scratched the surface here today. This is just an overview, just to give you a taste. And actually, you can download the CTPs, try them out for everything except for Web Designer. The Web Designer CTP, we'll have an announcement about that in the next session. And then come leave feedback in the forum. So just like this is all about user experience and expressiveness, and you listen to your customers to hear what they want. You're our customers. We want to hear what you want. We want you to try these things, give us feedback. And we actually have a lot of work that we're doing on these two products in particular, on the user interface and the usability of the product. So this is a great time for you to try it out and give us feedback on what you find really useful or what you find difficult. So thank you for your time, and now we'll have Q&A, and come up to the microphones if you have a question. And I'm going to pull on stage anybody who else might be assisting in answering questions. All right, we have a question over there.
Hi, thanks. I'm curious, what should we be, do you expect people to call this Microsoft Expression Interactive Designer, or Sparkle is a catchier name? What should we call it when we're referring to it?
It's the name is Expression Interactive Designer, for that all the products are, and most of the time these products are related and they're a family of products, so really the shorthand name is Expression. And if you really have to differentiate between one or the other, then we usually say interactive or interactive designer or graphic designer. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Two questions, really. Does this work in Firefox, and is it like a plug-in type of thing that you need an IE, or how does it work in the browser?
So of the three products that we're talking about, the technologies underlying them, we have web technologies, which of course is agnostic. It'll run anywhere. We have WPFE, which we talked about earlier, which is a subset of XAML, which is cross-platform, cross-browser, multiple device. And then we have, if you're targeting Vista and WinFX, which also runs on Windows XP, then you have more features and you're integrated to the desktop. And you have a different security model, and you have, basically you can do hardware acceleration. So all the 3D stuff that we showed, that's all actually hardware accelerated. So if the client PC has a decent graphics card on it, then you're going to be able to do real 3D stuff, and multiple video sources and all that. And some of the other sessions that are going on here, they'll be showing you some good demonstrations of what you can build using all the tools and technologies.
When's it being released?
When's it being released? Which thing?
Yes.
Vista? So a lot of
Expression.
It's at different times. There's not going to be one release for everything. Web Designer will probably be the first, and then these tools, any of the tools that are tied to XAML are also to some extent tied to Vista. And so they'll come out around the time that Vista comes out, or a little after.
Hi. Will it import other vector formats like Illustrator or?
Yeah, so if we looked at Graphic Designer here, you can, actually there's an exporter that we have that's free for Adobe Illustrator, so that you can, today, some of the artwork that we used was AI artwork. So you can pull that right in. Graphic Designer, I believe, also supports exporting to Illustrator and to PDF and to JPEG and, of course, to XAML.
Hi, I noticed when he drug the XML into it created the box, and there was a scroll bar that it added. Will we be able to change that scroll bar?
Yes. So the scroll bar is a tricky little beast because there's lots of little moving parts.
Right.
But yes.
Good.
You can basically open it up. You can see its all of its tree structure, and you can target and change different pieces. Yep. And that's Joe. He's on the Expression Interactive Designer team.
So speaking of cross-platform issues, I'm assuming this is all Windows only at the moment, and I got the impression you're targeting graphic designers. So I'm just kind of wondering who you're targeting, because a lot of graphic designers are Mac-based. I mean, I think we're probably at like 50-50 right now, but there still are a lot of Mac users.
Sure.
So what are you doing about that? Are they a factor, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we found is that, first off, 80% of design professionals had at least one PC. And they might also have Macs or whatever. But we found that a lot of designers actually have a PC, partly because a lot of their target audience has PCs as well. So these tools are first built on Windows. It'd be pretty bad if Microsoft didn't have a good story on Windows for their own tools. So that's our focus. And they're also targeting, some of this is targeting Vista. And so you're not going to have that same expressiveness anywhere else. But some of the tools, like Expression Web Designer, of course, and Interactive Designer with WPFE, will allow you to deploy things to other platforms. But right now, we don't have any announcement of whether we will be or when we'll be targeting the tools themselves to be running on other platforms. we kind of have to start building in our own backyard first.
Is there anything to support asset management? Libraries, things like that?
Okay.
Does the XAML then go into a database? I mean, what's you guys' vision for asset management of graphics?
Certainly. So are you talking about like a portfolio type or some kind of whole management system, like a large-scale system, or are you just talking about the ability to reuse assets?
Well, I'm thinking mostly of reuse, but I guess the other things apply too. You're developing UI elements for developers, and you're offering up libraries of buttons and controls and things like that, styles.
Right. So there's ways that you can create resource libraries here where you can just basically create assets, create graphics. You can package them as a resource that can be reused in multiple projects. And then, of course, since you're tied into Visual Studio, we also have all the Visual Studio team system stuff and version control and ways to version and to save all of this. And XAML is all human readable. It's not a binary format, so you can actually diff. You can actually see if there's changes. You can easily do file compares and things like that and find out what's changed. But I don't know, as far as any asset management system, anything really complicated, I don't have anything to announce on that right at this time. So, but we are looking to, we're looking at how to extend the whole thing so this all works together. Again, we're going all the way from the databases to the devices. There's these, the Windows smartphones and everything else. So we're very interested in whatever needs you all find that you think are important to make this whole system work.
Will Expression translate over to handheld devices, and are you doing more tools to deal with the smaller formats? And also, it seems to me that graphic design is dead, and for you to continue using the language seems to be almost like you're not really looking forward to what designers' role will play with developers.
Graphic design is dead. I didn't know that. Let's see. So first off, I think the question that I would address first is about devices. And there's actually some people in the room that are going to be talking about WPFE tomorrow and doing some demonstrations using Interactive Designer to create content for the web and devices. And I think that talk is at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Anybody here? I don't know where that, but anyway. So you can look for that. It's WPFE, and they'll be showing creating that kind of cross-browser, cross-platform content in Interactive Designer. So just out of curiosity, when you say graphic design is dead, what do you mean by that? Now, I know that a lot of people say that print is dead. I've heard that. No offense to any.
I think it's our responsibility to change the language because if you go inside of any design studio now, no one wants to be called a graphic designer.
Right.
No
okay.
one.
So it's been commoditized, is what you're talking about. Yeah.
And also, I mean, I think as we develop, people don't design logos anymore. They design brands. They're strategists. I mean, so it seems as though Microsoft can start moving into new language as designers need to be able to be viable in the business.
Right. So part of that is perception, and part of that is the commoditization of something. As soon as people figure out how to do it really well, it gets commoditized. I think that the result, in general, I believe that results speak for themselves. So I think that the people that have the skills and get in there and do it are going to make opportunities for themselves. And that's just what I've seen in every other technology. I think one of the big differences between what we're showing here and where the world is today is that, like if you look at the web, there's amazing things that are happening with the mashups and with Ajax and stuff. But it's all really hacks on top of hacks, right? It's document object model. The first version of HTML didn't even have an image tag, right? So this stuff was never conceived, and it's been stretched so far. It's amazing. It's beautiful, but it's amazing. So the thing that excites me about the WinFX stuff and everything is it was designed to actually create really rich things. It was designed to take advantage of hardware acceleration and 3D and media and has all these advances in typography and everything. So I'm really excited to see what you all are going to do starting from that as a base. And we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And so, it gives you a head start. You're way far from where we were with the web. So I think that's going to be really exciting.
Looking at these two as a suite, how do you see, you showed that you can design, graphic designers can work in acrylic and then pull it into Sparkle. What is what if the designer gets to the point where they see it in Sparkle and they need to bring it back into acrylic? What's the workflow?
So right now, you're editing resources in Graphic Designer, and those can be in the resource library. You go through the exporter. So it's not necessarily a one-way process, but you can iterate on that, but you start from your source. You maintain your source files and then just re-export it and consume it that way. And then you can check into version control or whatever.
You were showing the 3D model in Expression and how you could set a timeline and use that to adjust things. Can you likewise, are there any drag or click features for inputting through the 3D objects? Is there an input side to that wired the same way as another object?
No. So the focus of Interactive Designer is on composition and basically doing layout and designing the user interface and consuming the different types of assets. So we pull in text and video and 3D and all of that, and then you composite there. We don't need to go out and reinvent the wheel over and over again and create a bunch of new tools. We just need to make sure that we have tools that are going to work for people end to end. And we feel like the interface, at this time, the interface between 3D tools, they're very good at creating 3D. There's libraries out there, stuff. There's a lot of people with the skill set. And then they just pull it in here to do the stuff that's harder to do. So anyway, thanks very much for your time. You can stick around for a few minutes for questions. And again, I recommend being back here in like 10 minutes to watch Web Designer. It's going to be good stuff. Thank you very much for your time.